It's been a little while since I've done one of these, but this pair of Jordan 8 Bugs Bunnies are beat to hell, and I gotta breathe a little bit of life back into them. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for coming through for your first visit to Sailboat Supplies. If you're a returning member of the channel, I appreciate the continued support. Today, I am going to be working on a restoration project where I am going to be doing a full restoration for these Air Jordan 8 Bugs Bunnies. Quite honestly, this pair of kicks is so cooked right now that traditionally I wouldn't even recommend doing a restoration of this caliber, but this pair is for the homie Marlon hip-hop artist out of Hell's Kitchen, New York, and asked what I could do to breathe a little bit of life back into these Bugs Bunnies that he actually bought from me about 3 or 4 years ago. I looked at him and told him that I could at least make them wearable again, and that's all he wanted from me. Let's take a closer look at this pair so you guys know exactly what it is that I'm going to be working with during this project. So as I mentioned before, these shoes belong to Marlon Craft, and this was a pair that I sold to him that he wore on a nationwide tour night after night. You can see that these things are absolutely cooked. The midsole is separating from the uppers pretty severely. There's a ton of scratches and scuffing on the uppers, and you can see that he's wore down these kicks so much that the outsole is actually breaking down into the midsole there. The paint is actually holding up rather well, but I think that just for the sake of this project, since I'm going to be doing pretty much everything, I might give them a repaint as well, but we'll see how they look after I get everything all separated. Left shoe, a little bit more of the same. These ones aren't separating quite as bad, but because the other one looks as bad as it does, it makes sense for me to just do a full reglue on them. Now, I don't know whether or not there's going to be any sort of separation between the outsole and the midsole. If there is, I'm just going to go ahead and do a complete reglue on that. This one, uppers are pretty damn scuffed, and this left shoe also is a lot worse for wear as far as paint is concerned, and will very likely need a full repaint as well. And now that you guys have seen a close-up of these kicks, it's time to get into the start of the restoration process. For this specific pair, I'm actually going to go ahead and get the soles detached first because that seems like the most obvious thing for me to do. Let's hop into it. All right, so this is a part I normally don't take the time to do, which is actually show you guys some of the things that go into my preparation process. With a lot of the different sole separation projects that you've seen, you know that I like to use a steam gun. One of the biggest things during my actual sole removal process that I like to focus on is reducing the utilization of chemicals as much as possible. And I'm going to try and reduce the overall amount of heat, steam, and boiling water that I use by trying to use them in combination with one another. What I like to do before that is get this acetone into a smaller container that I will be putting in this syringe right here, because that will make actually utilizing the acetone a lot less messy and a lot less wasteful. It helps me to kind of moderate how much I'm using, and it also helps me to disperse it a lot more evenly. This midsole and upper is pretty much just separating all on its own. Right now, I'm just kind of gently pulling it apart, utilizing pretty even pressure and trying to be very delicate with the midsoles here. Just do little sections at a time because I don't want anything to slip and all of a sudden rip up the midsole. When it comes to Jordan 8s, when you get to this kind of plastic component right here, having a bone folder can be an especially helpful tool because it can actually really get in between the midsole and that plastic component so you don't damage either of them in the process. So right here, I've encountered a little bit of a stubborn spot, so I'm just gonna use like a little tiny bit of acetone right in there. And theoretically, that should loosen it right up. I was able to do the majority of the separation just using light pressure
and utilizing my bone folder with very sparing hits of acetone. I did get to a couple of sections of the shoe that proved to be a little bit more challenging where I did have to use my steam gun, and when I did get into using the steam gun, it made really quick work of all of the excess glue that was still holding the midsoles to the uppers. This process was pretty quick and it went nice and smoothly, giving me a clean separation for the midsole and the upper.
And that's how we do the first shoe right there. Now we're gonna do the second one, which is a little bit more attached. I think that this combination of the steam gun and acetone is actually working out pretty well, so let's get down to the second shoe.
The second shoe went a little bit more difficult than the first shoe just because of the fact that the glue bond was still a little bit stronger. I ended up using my steam gun a bit more and got a clean separation still.
Guys, at this point in time, I officially have separated the uppers from the midsoles on these Bug Bunnies, and it's officially time to get into some of the preparation work. What I'm gonna have to do to prep up these shoes is remove all of the excess glue. I'm gonna have to give them a nice deep clean inside and out, and then I'm going to have to remove some of the old paint in the areas that I'm going to be touching up with new paint. Let's start off by removing all of the excess glue, and then we'll get into a nice deep clean on this pair.
The first step of the preparation process was working on removing all of the old excess glue from both the uppers and the midsoles. On the uppers, I primarily used my Dremel tool with a sandpaper bit, and this helped to remove the majority of the glue. For the midsoles, I primarily used acetone with cotton balls, and this actually did not damage the midsoles too much, which was really nice. Then came to cleaning the soles of the shoes. For this part of the process, I used my Dremel Versa as well as a brush and New Antidote. New Antidote was actually a perfect cleaner for this situation because it also has de-yellowing properties, so I was able to put my shoes out in the sunlight after and get them slightly de-yellowed from the New Antidote. I followed that up with a Salon Care 40 treatment to get these soles looking back to their original white color. After I had finished up with the icing process, it was time to actually wash the uppers of the shoes. I utilized an all-purpose brush from Reshoevn8r along with my New Antidote from New Life Kicks. After cleaning the uppers, I had to clean all of the sole sauce off of the soles and finish cleaning them up. For this part, I used a Cricut pick tool as well as a whole bunch of cotton swabs to help to get out all the excess sole sauce.
At this point in time, I got these Air Jordan 8 Bugs Bunnies totally separated, totally prepped as far as removing all the old glue. I have given them a deep clean, and I even got the opportunity to de-yellow the soles because it was a nice sunny day out, so I just went for it after the deep clean. The next step is to touch up the paint on both the uppers and the midsoles prior to re-gluing the shoes. Let's get into the paint prep and the painting, and then we'll talk about For this part of the preparation process, I'm gonna need a little bit of acetone, and since I don't need a whole gallon, just a little cup should suffice, and I'm gonna set the gallon off to the side. Keep in mind there are many leather preparers and deglazers that you can use. I have acetone with me right now, so that's what I'm gonna be choosing to use. It's obviously a very strong chemical, and I'm gonna need to be careful with my application so I don't actually damage any of the leather. For the uppers, I need to fix up these toe boxes right here and smooth out all of those scuffs. And then on the midsoles, there's very minimal that needs to be repainted. As you can tell on this gray part, that needs to be repainted. The outer edge needs to be repainted, and then there's a little bit of a mark on the red here that also needs to be repainted. Not a full repaint, but still needs to be touched up, so let's get into the preparation.
In order to repaint both the uppers and the midsoles, they had to be prepped first. I utilized acetone and cotton balls and cotton swabs to take off the original layers of finisher and paint from both the uppers and the sections of the midsole that needed to be painted. Afterwards, I tried my best to color match my paints to get the best match with the original paint colors that I possibly could. After several light layers of paint, these things were ready to go.
I've made some really good progress on these Air Jordan 8 Bugs Bunnies so far. Pretty much finished repainting the uppers and the midsoles at this point in time. I do need to give them a clear coat of finisher before I get to my re-gluing process. Once I've given them a clear coat, then I'm going to go on to the re-gluing process where I will be applying the glue, waiting 2 hours for the glue to cure, and then bonding the uppers to the midsoles. Let's get down to the final couple processes of this restoration.
Prior to my reglue, I sprayed down the midsoles and the sections of the uppers that I had painted with a Krylon finisher. I used a semi-gloss because the original paint was not totally matte. After applying my finisher, I went ahead and applied some barge super stick to both the midsoles as well as the uppers of these kicks. I let the glue dry for about 30 minutes before applying a second layer, and then that way I know that every single surface is well coated. After about 2 hours of letting the glue cure, it's time for the bonding process, and I reheat section by section, trying to make sure that every single part of the shoe matches up appropriately. Following the bonding process, if there are any touch-ups that I need to do, I add a little bit of extra glue, let it rest for about 30 minutes or so, and then reheat so I can bond the surfaces together. Following the bonding of the uppers to the midsoles, it was time to get the laces all cleaned up. The laces had been sitting in some new antidote for about 24 hours, and I was able to brush them down to get all of the junk out of them before relacing these kicks and finishing off the project.
At this point in time, I've completed a near full restoration on this pair of Air Jordan 8 Bugs Bunnies. Let's take a little bit of a closer look so you guys can see these things up close and see all of the work that I did to them. So taking a closer look at this pair of kicks, one of the things that you're gonna see right off of the bat is that they are a ton cleaner than they were when I first started working on them. I gave these things a deep clean. I tried to revitalize the suede on the back as much as possible. I was able to de-yellow and deep clean the outsoles, and they are looking a lot better at this point in time. You'll also be able to see some of the scuffs along the toe box have been smoothed out and repainted. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get my color match 100%. Now, you'll see that I did leave some of the paint creasing where the actual creases in the shoe occur. I talked to Marlon, and he agreed that being that he's going to be walking around New York City in these very regularly, those crease marks are just going to come back quicker, and he didn't want to risk ruining the actual integrity of the leather. Now you'll be able to see these things have been given a nice solid re-glue, and they are living up to the pressure test quite nicely. They're looking good, no separation when I apply pressure to the shoes, and you can see that the paint on the toes is also holding up to the pressure test. I was able to repaint the midsole in the red section here, and although I didn't get a one-to-one color match, I think it looks pretty good and definitely meshes with the rest of the shoe. Obviously, this pair of kicks has come a long way since I started working on them. I'm really happy to say that this is one of the best restorations that I've ever done before, and even though there's still a lot of things that I have to work on, I learned a ton during this restoration process, and I think that these things are looking 100% better, and I know for a fact that they will definitely be wearable. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about this transformation though, so make sure that you let me know right in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed the contents of today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the extra 10 seconds to click your pointer finger twice to hit the like button as well as the subscribe button. It only takes you guys a couple of extra seconds, and doing so helps to support the channel in a major way and helps me to keep pushing out content just like this for you guys. If you guys are interested in any of the inventory that I have for sale or any of the services that I have to offer, make sure that you check into the website at www.sailboatsupplies.xyz. And if you're interested in seeing the day-to-day ongoings of Sailboat Supplies, make sure that you tap in on social media at Sailboat Supplies. This restoration project took a really long time and was definitely very challenging, but like I said, I learned a ton and I feel a lot more confident in taking on more restoration work in the near future. I'm gonna get these things back over to Marlon as soon as possible, so then that way he can start stomping around New York City in them again. Make sure that you guys check out Marlon Craft on social media at Marlon Craft. You can find his website at www.marloncraft.com, and you can find all of his music on every major streaming platform by searching for Marlon Craft. As per usual, thank you to everybody that stuck around until the cold, bitter end of this video. You guys already know, I'm Sailboat, and I'm out of here.